Hey Claire, hello and welcome to Education Next podcast. And this is a very casual talk uh, where you share what you're doing. And I've been following you on Twitter. That's how I know you. I've been following your posts from quite some while, and it's very, very inspiring. It's inspiring a lot of people. And so please tell us about yourself and what you do.
You want to tell about myself or what we do, or both of those things?
Both a little bit. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, first I wanted to say thank you so much. It's such an honor to get to talk to you guys, and it's an honor to be of value to the community. You say that I'm inspiring, and that's incredibly I'm incredibly honored to hear that. So my background is I am a professor currently, but I'm resigning. Associate professor in biomedical engineering. So I got my degree in biomedical engineering, but I also predominantly studied neuroscience, so how the brain works. And I've been doing all of that until COVID. And then I discovered homeschooling and decided that homeschooling was really just an amazing, miraculous thing for my family and myself. And so we've been homeschooling for, I don't count what we did during COVID. So if you count that, it's been longer, but I don't count that part. So I say that we've officially been homeschooling since January 2021. So about three years now. And yeah, so in terms of my homeschooling day, I say we're kind of a mix between classical education and unschooling. And people always give me a weird look because those seem to be like, how do you fit those two things? They're almost like diametrically opposed.
Correct.
And so what I would say is that classical education is all about training the mind. How to think, basically, and how to think for itself. It's about giving really strong foundations in classic literature and history and logic and reasoning. But I'm also an unschooler, so I think that children need to find their own path. I think they need to find their interests that they're in, that they want to explore deeply. I think that they should have a lot of agency in the education that they choose. They should be asked what curriculum they want to do and why. So I think that it's kind of a mix. And I'd say we're more traditional kind of homeschoolers in the mornings, and we're hardcore unschooly types in the afternoons, except that I put a lot of things in my kids' path. So I don't just allow them to, I started off very hardcore unschooling and just like, oh, let them find their way. And then I got to a place where I was like, they're not going to find some of this stuff on their own. So I started just kind of, the unschooling types will also talk about strewing. So they talked about putting just kind of things in their path. And so I've just kind of upped the ante with that. So we start putting things in their path like really amazing sculptures and Frank Lloyd Wright, and we just did the Galapagos and things like that. So just kind of putting really cool things in their path. And if they're bored with them, we moved on. But to be honest, that never happens. I was never bored with it.
So I think what you define, it's actually what most of us are doing. It's like the strewing thing that I more parents I meet and more homeschoolers I meet, this is what I understand, that it's, of course, I think the lifestyle is unschooling, because like you said, they're open to choose, they're open to decline, they're open to say I'm not interested. And that's, I think, the philosophy of unschooling, where you don't have to do it, but basically we are exploring it together, sort of a situation where, and but like you said, they don't say no, they love to know it. And it's also because the way you are approaching that. If today I suddenly start talking about politicians with Adi, my son, he will be interested, he gets interested into that topic, so he wants to understand more, because the way you share story, the way you share the content, everything makes a difference. And I think that's what most of the people are doing, like classical way of putting things, what is important, at the same time the way you approach it is kind of, it's very flexible. I think that's what I understand.
Yeah.
um
I,
yeah.
I was going to say, I will say that one of the things that I'm working on, though, is, and this is kind of a topic that I'm still trying to work through and work it with my kids as well, is that I think that there's a time and place to coach them in certain things that they wouldn't necessarily want to do all the time. So I had someone who was talking to me about, my goal is just for the kid to be happy all the time. Well, sometimes you have to do hard things. And if you do those hard things, that's what gets you to the other path. I'm not going to force my child to do something, but I am going to highly encourage it. And if you have a really strong relationship with them, then you work through the hard stuff. And, my oldest in particular, really had some hard times with writing or with some of her early math work. And so she didn't really want to engage with those things. So I found ways for her to engage with those things that she actually really, that she enjoyed. And we kind of built her up. But it's not saying, oh, well, therefore she just doesn't like writing and math and we're not going to do it. It's more saying those are really important skills that she needs to have. She doesn't have to go get a math degree. She doesn't have to have math in her. But she'll tell you that's one of her favorite subjects, and writing is one of her favorite things to do. But part of the reason those are her favorite things is because they were hard. So I think that there's a delicate balance between not forcing your kids, giving them agency, but also encouraging them to do hard things. And that's actually really just is important.
I think yes. I think I relate with that. But how do you do that? Like, how do you get her to do something which she doesn't like? How does that happen?
Well, so we can start with writing. With writing, she had a really strong, most of hers comes down to a fear of not being perfect. And so we worked a lot with, so what is underlying their choice not to do something? Is it that, in her case, it was that she felt, nervous to get something wrong. Sometimes it's something else. So it kind of depends on the child and why they don't like something. Or a lot of times parents will talk to me about, wanting to learn to read. I've had other times where they aren't really interested. It's like, well, find a book they're interested in. Maybe it's just because they're not interested in that book. Maybe they haven't developed the enjoyment of stories yet. So I think figuring out what the underlying issue is. And so for her, because it was just fear of getting it wrong or not writing it correctly, I started off with poetry, because poetry breaks all the rules. You don't have to spell it right. It doesn't have to be a sentence. It doesn't have to have a capital letter. It doesn't have to be like literally anything is poetry. And so we started with, and I did cutesy stuff with her. So we did these shape poems, which are basically you make a shape. And so we started with like a heart, and I was like, just write whatever you want to around it. And it was like, I love my cats. I love dogs, because they know how to spell I love, because they're used to that, right? And so we just started there. And then we just kind of slowly built her into other kinds of things. And so I think giving them agency in those kinds of things and giving them a choice. And sometimes, I would sit down and give her like one of these three things. And she would pick one of them. So some of the activities we never did, but coming up with ways to get them engaged in it. And again, that go around whatever it is that's bothering them, or the reason they don't want to do it. And a lot of times when they just say, I don't want to do it, that is not usually a strong, like, it's usually, sometimes it's maybe they need more playtime. That's not, you don't have enough time for that. But kids will get bored if there's not being stimulated. Depends on their age, of course. A 4-year-old doesn't need a lot of academic stimulation, but as they get older, they want it. And I think they crave it, most kids.
Yes, absolutely. So how's the situation where you are? Like, are you homeschooling alone, or do you have people around you? How does it work?
We're lucky. We're in a state in the United States that we had school choice for a long time. We actually have a universal ESA system. So we actually even have we were homeschooling before it got passed, but that's increased the number of people who are doing it, because now they have money to support that. So there's kind of a 1,000 co-ops right now. I've actually kind of created my own co-op. Because I think when a lot of the co-ops they were great. We had lots of different opportunities, and we met a lot of really great people, so I don't have any problems with them, but a lot of them were more play-based, which was awesome. My kids, we still do a lot of those things, but I wanted an education environment where the kids were getting to learn in groups, because kids, it's great for them to learn with me, and that's fantastic, but they also get so much out of different perspectives, different ideas coming from other kids, getting a sense of what other kids' ideas are like. And so I really wanted them to do that. So I kind of formed my own little co-op. And now we do the kinds of activities, the bigger activities. Like this week we did the Galapagos. Next week, I think we're doing Spain, and we're going to go kind of deep dive into Spain. We did Japan. We're in Arizona. And so we did one on, like, it was just recently Arizona's birthday. And so we did one on Arizona and what Arizona is really about and those kinds of things. So kind of deep dive and they're not just informational, but the goal is to have projects and to be doing really sophisticated kinds of things. So instead of just saying, oh, here's these cool animals, it's like, okay, let's talk about natural selection. Let's talk about plate tectonics. Let's talk about, how islands are formed and these kinds of levels of things. And I think if I have anything for parents, I think sometimes they don't think their kids can do as much as they can. I think if you expose them to these big things, that they'll surprise you with what they can grasp and what they can get out
I
of it.
totally agree. I mean, with that point, I mean, if you give them, if they have that kind of freedom, I see Adi, how he took on with his interest for technology. And I mean, he surprises me with the things that at this age, I get stuck with so many things. And he's like, Ma, wait, I can do this.
I
And,
got it.
and it's just that you don't never have to ask him to study or learn about technology when it comes to that. He can basically, but like you said, they have to have, like, now your job becomes to connect them with the right mentors, with the right content. And I think that's a major part of any homeschool family, where you connect, because you might not know everything. And what do you think of that, connecting people to the right mentors, or getting experts, so that, because one person cannot be a know-it-all, right? So what do you think of that?
Right. 100% agree. I think that, particularly as the kids get older, my kids aren't quite to the stage where they're investigating kind of vocational things yet, though we talk about it a lot, but that's coming. And I listened to a podcast when I was starting to think about homeschooling, and I think it was called Living Joyfully. It's about unschooling. And because I was like, how do these unschooled kids end up? And I was like, this sounds really cool, but what happens to these kids? And one of the ones that was the most striking to me is she was interviewing this woman who at the time was 28, but she had been unschooled. And when she was in middle school, she wanted to be a veterinarian. And so her parents, being really good unschooling parents, moved out to the country and let her like follow around this vet. And so she was going to do all this really cool stuff. And about a year into it, she came back to her parents and she says, I don't want to be a vet. They were like, what do you mean? Like, we did all this stuff so you could become a vet. And she was like, yeah, I thought I was going to be taking care of like cute puppies and stuff, but it's mostly just taking care of sick animals. And a lot of times those animals, pass away. And she's like, I just don't want to be taking care of sick animals all my life. And so anyway, her and her 28-year-old self was basically like, what if I had not been given that opportunity? She's like, what if I had gone on all the way through high school and then gone to college and then got my veterinarian degree, and then I'd be exactly the same age I am now, being like, man, I don't want to be this vet. And then you're just stuck. And so she ended up taking a completely different path, and she actually interned at a company and then started her own company. So at 28 years old, she had been basically working for a decade, so she she had her own business for a large portion of that. So it's just, I think that getting the opportunity for them to really experience what field it is that they think they want to be in is really, really important. And I do
Yes.
think that there's more and more companies that are coming around to that. So I absolutely agree with finding mentors. And there's never been an easier time to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, I always think that this is one of the best times to do that, because people are embracing these kind of options now. Companies are looking for people. They don't care about what degrees you have come with. You should have the skill, and everybody's talking about, the World Economic Forum talks about skills, about building the skills that can help you fit, so that they don't have to train you, right? And that's what's happening, especially in India, that children are going through students are going through colleges and everything, but when it comes to recruitments, they don't have the right skills to fit, or to have the right skills to do a particular work. Maybe you studied computer science, but when you're going there, you because you don't have the resources in the college or whatever, there's so many things that are piling up. And I think when you start this vocational training, when kids start it early, what happens is they also know what they don't want to do. Because
Yes.
some, like the story you shared, I mean, it might feel very exciting, and you think that it's not just about puppies, right? It's more than that. You have to feed them, you have to clean them, you have to clean the
Yep.
dirt and everything, and then you're like, no, I am not interested in this. This is not what I was hoping for.
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so now what do you think about this? There's a surge in homeschooling. Washington Post recently published this article about how, especially in US, there's a rise by 3%, 300% in Washington DC, and everywhere else as well. There's a surge in homes, world schooling. People are traveling with their kids, they're exploring, they're ready to leave their comfort zone basically and come out, leaving their jobs, going remote, managing the money stuff. And so what do you think of this?
I think that it gives me hope for the future. I think the more and more people who are taking full agency with their families and taking ownership of their children's education is just a miraculous thing. And I mean, we'd never considered it. 5 years ago, if you said, have you considered homeschooling? I'd be like, I don't even know what that really means. I only had an idea of it from, media, right? Which is not positive. And so it just gives me a lot of hope. And I'm very excited to see what happens and how things evolve. I think that I also tend to believe that more competition is better. And I think that it's also going to encourage the school systems to be better, because they're going to have to be, because those kids are going to be competing. And, in the US, we've had, we kind of reached our peak in terms of our school system in the late 70s, early 80s, and things have been kind of sliding downhill from there. And we can talk about why. I don't know that we really particularly know why, but there's been increasingly problems. And so something needs to change and something needs to shake it up. And I guess, as much as I did not enjoy the pandemic, and I think nobody enjoyed it, I think that it was really good and important, and a lot of good things came out of it, which is the shaking a box of education, particularly in the United States, but I think everywhere people are starting to go, oh, hey, what's actually going on inside the classrooms? And is that the kind of education that I want for my children? And I think a lot of parents said no. And we in the United States, I happen to know, actually, one of the co-ops for a while, 85% of them were former teachers. So a lot of the teachers are getting out and basically but a lot of those teachers, some of them are homeschooling their kids and some of them are starting their own schools, particularly in my state, because parents have access to other monies. You can get we have a lot of former teachers starting their own micro schools. And so parents have never had, so even if they can't full-time homeschool, they're getting to do these more like part-time situations and finding a teacher that they really approve of and their messaging and all of that. And I think that's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think the best part of it is this community-based learning, right? You don't have to go very far. It's somewhere near where you live. And like you said, teachers are coming out. So they have the experience of what works, what doesn't work. And then enrolled parents, taking that responsibility to help kids out. They're involved completely. There's not a battle between the teacher and the parent where they're like, what are you doing? And the teacher is like,
Right,
I know what
exactly.
I'm doing. So that
Well,
battle.
well, and I happen to know that in the United States, that a lot of the school systems are they're inadvertently hiding a lot of the data from the parents. They are not giving them accurate report cards on how their students are doing. So they're passing students through that really aren't testing at grade level. But how is a parent supposed to know any different? They got a B and they moved up to the next grade. Well, that doesn't mean that they're on grade level. And we know that the schools are not, and this is just, small, it's not all of the schools. I don't tend to bash all the schools. I don't believe in anything 100% being terrible or 100% being great. And I feel that way about homeschooling too. There's homeschooling families that most of them, I think, do a really, really good job. And I don't know that it's for everybody. Not everybody can do it. Or wants to do it for that matter. But in terms of the schools, I think that there just needs to be more openness so that the parents know what's really happening there, and how their kid is actually doing. And of course, you probably agree with me that testing is not exactly the best way to really judge a person's future, but it is the method that we have at this point. And so that at least shouldn't be hidden from parents. I'd actually love to hear from you about how homeschooling is going in India, because I know that you guys have a smaller population. As you have a larger overall population, you have a smaller percentage population that's homeschooling.
Yeah, I think here, like I said, I mean, it's picking up, Claire. It's not that it's not that people are not aware of it. I think especially in cities where in Bangalore it's picking up, in Pune it's picking up, in Chennai there is some population there where people are talking about it. In small cities, no, it's not a culture at all. It's everything is traditional school, the best traditional school, the international schools, and it just works like that. The international schools here, where they call themselves international, which means they have more extracurricular activities where it's public speaking and where it's sports and it's music and everything is there. In the school, traditional government schools are basically where it's quite academic. They're trying to, have sessions for games and play, but it's it's very, very very diverse kind of ways in which schools are running. But it's like, I would say maybe 90-95% are still in traditional schools, but some people are breaking away. They are talking about it. There are alternate spaces now coming up. It's not micro schools, but these are alternate spaces. India always had the history of having that spiritual taking a spiritual path. So now people are breaking away from that job culture. So first shift is there, and I think slowly, because these people, when they become parents, they will start thinking about how they want to raise their kids. And when I see this alternate spaces in different parts of India, I understand that this is also going to relate to education in the future, because you will not like your children to be into 9 to 5. You will want them to have their own path. And there's Orwell, you might have heard about Orwell, and it's
Oh
there,
yes.
right? So places like that, I mean, is coming up in different parts. There are so many people trying to do something alternate, which will
Yeah.
eventually lead to, being an independent sort of education. Where, see, I think education is also more than just what you study. I mean, just maths and science. It's more and more than that. I think the way it's happening in Orville or in other ashrams, it's more like people are doing their self-engineering. They're understanding their body. They're understanding about diseases. They're understanding about how can I keep my body fit. It's about yoga. It's about exploring. It's going on the mountains. It's understanding people. It's understanding culture. So here, I think we lost all this in the last 200, 300, whatever years. We lost this
Yes.
completely. We lost connecting with who we were, and now we are studying it through just science textbooks, and it doesn't relate to you,
It doesn't
right?
relate.
It
I 100% I agree with you about everything. I
yeah.
actually think there's so I study a lot of the Ayurveda. We do a lot of Ayurveda in our household. And one of my favorite new things is modern science will come out with something and I'm like, yeah, well, but Ayurveda's had that for 2000 years. Like we just, you're just studying something that they've known about for a really long time. And I think there is a lot of this ancient knowledge that we knew, and I think as it connects to your body, of course, and I think science, it's the living sciences, it's not the sciences. Like now all of a sudden we've moved to, because of the way the modalities of testing, it's more, do you know these facts? And it's not that the facts aren't important. You do need to have a foundation in order to be able to explore the rest of the body. But that's just the very smallest step. That's just the very beginning. And what you're supposed to be doing is, how does the system work together as a whole? How does your system work together as a whole? Because everybody is different. Everybody has different, Ayurveda has different doshas and different combinations of doshas. But every
Absolutely.
single, I think, even if you don't believe in Ayurveda,
Mm,
it's still that every single individual is an individual.
mm,
And that's why medicine, so I did clinical trials, and it's always true when you run clinical trials and you look at the clinical trial data, it's never 100% of the people got better. It's always a certain percentage of people got better. You're comparing this population to that population, so this population, more of them got better than this population, but then you still end up with like 20% of people that were not served by either
mm.
of the things. And so we really do need to be able to give this individualized medicine, and training kids to be able to think about it properly is really important. And it's not just, the heart has 4 chambers. it's yes, the heart has 4 chambers and they work together, and this is why that happened, and how does that interact with your respiratory system, and how does it interact with your brain system and your circulatory system, and how are all of these things connected through your nervous system, and all of that. Like no, you have to think about everything as an entire system instead of one
I
little
think,
thing that.
yeah, actually, I would like to say this is very much like self-awareness.
Mhm.
If you never are self-aware, you don't understand your feelings, you don't understand your body, you don't understand how am I in this environment and how I connect to this environment, how this environment connects to me, then somewhere down the line, you're going to be lost and you will have to find yourself. And that's why there's a trend. A lot of people are going outside, they are camping, they are going and living in jungles, there are digital nomads. Everybody is in search of something. That's the basic thing. We are all getting back to the hunter gatherer style. So Claire, we can talk about this more and more, and this can only go on. But now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you about, you have been doing this from quite some while. You're creating content. Let us know a little bit about what are you doing, where you are going with this, and if any parent wants to learn or wants to explore this, what do you suggest?
So, I mean, if you're interested in talking to me, I'm on Twitter at Hippie Mom PhD, and my website is www.theahimsamind.com. And you guys, you probably know ahimsa. Not everybody knows what ahimsa means, but it means nonviolent, and that really relates to my education philosophy as an unschooler. I think you understand that it's non-coercive education. But I also believe that as you train the mind, if you train it properly, you're not going to you're going to choose nonviolent means to better the world. So in terms of what I'm progressing on is I'm just hoping to be of value to the community. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the community loves. So right now I'm mostly focusing on things that I'm doing in my own homeschool, and then I'm putting those things together. The community kept asking for it, so I've been putting together the activities that we're doing in an itemized way, down to these are the materials you need. This is all of the videos that you could use. These are the questions that you can ask, and all of those kinds of things for these kind of multidisciplinary studies. And so I've just been putting those together for people, and they can find me on my website, which is it's a weekly newsletter, so you can get access to that. And I will tell people, particularly your audience, if they tend to be more in India, if you feel like you can't afford it and you want it, just send me a message and we'll figure it out for you. Okay. So it's not something that should be limited by funds. My main goal is just to connect the community and be of value. So
That's amazing. I think. Thank you so much, Claire, for being here.
of course.
And finally, I see you. I get to see you. I was only
Yeah,
seeing you your post,
same. It's
but
really nice.
so it was great talking to you. I think we can just chat anytime else about the things that we do, and that will be fun.
Well,
Yeah.
next time we're in India, I'll send you a message, and maybe we'll be.
Oh
I know it's
yes,
a very large country,
I
but
know. Yeah.
if you're ever in the U.S., you'll have to pop by Arizona.
Yes, yes, we should. Oh, that's amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Claire. Bye bye,
All
and
right,
have a great
bye.
night. Bye bye.
You too. Have a great day.